What's up, guys? How's it going? All right, last video I promised there were more coming, and today I'm delivering. This game I'm up against Token Counter, using the perennial Nin in the ongoing 1v1 online EDH saga. I just actually played this game a few minutes ago, and rather than waiting to see, just to think about it and so on, I wanted to do a replay for it while it was still fresh in my head, mainly because, and this is a bit of a spoiler here, but the game does in fact bug out pretty late in the game, but I felt that there was enough good content prior to the error in the archiving that it was worth doing a recording of it, and I'm sure you will agree as this game unfolds. I'm up against Mr. Token Counter, and he is running Sygg River Cutthroat, which is not a commander you see a great deal. I expected in the 1v1 format it's quite a bit better because this commander sort of plays to the, I guess, the strengths of the format, which tend to include a lot of cheap spells, a lot of cheap counter spells, and cheap removal and so on. And it's pretty easy to just continuously push damage through, especially when your opponent has a Mana Crypt in play. Because obviously every time, if you have Sygg out, every time their Crypt dings them, you draw an extra card, because this actually triggers at both end steps. A lot of people don't realize that. Same thing can happen, of course, if you use a fetch land into a shock land and take 3, you let your opponent draw. So not bad. As far as blue-black commanders go, yeah, maybe it's top tier among all of the straight blue-black commanders. There are a few other ones which you know I'm fond of, like Draw New, but I haven't really seen any Draw New decks in ages. Sygg is way more common and seems to be the kind of creature that people would like to play. I've gotten in, and I'm on the play here, and have a hand that's pretty solid. Obviously, it's just missing one land, but I do have Condescend going first, which means that even though I don't even have 2 blue sources, the chances that I'm unable to hit the 3-mana land drop are pretty low. And if, in fact, one of the lands that I draw is a fetch land, one of the 6 that I'm currently running, then this Crucible is going to take over the game, because blue-black can't do anything about artifacts most of the time. They don't even have Dak Faden to steal them. So, off we go. Alright, Token Counter is keeping as well. I'm just going to play my island. Alright, and I'm very, very glad to see he doesn't have a Soul Ring or a Crypt to start off his turn, because my hand can't interact with that at all, and that would make the Condescend all but dead as well. I was really afraid of that. And when he didn't have it, I was really overjoyed. Didn't have a Mox of any kind either. Alright, Worn Power Stone. Well, that's excellent, because that's going to make the Scry. That just gives me a much wider range of good turn 3 plays. I'm not really going to just play Crucible of Worlds without anything to fetch and let go of the ability to Condescend if I do in fact draw a 3rd mana source, but the Power Stone at least gives me the ability to go into Fact or Fiction and even a Jace if I'm able to draw a 2nd blue source. So I like actually how this looks very innocuous too. There's a very small range of spells that counter spells for 1 blue and 1 generic this early in the game too, so I guess there's Daze and Memory Lapse, Remand, Mana Leak. I'm sure he's got all of those in his deck too. Alright, blue, and down comes Sygg, walking right into this Condescend, which is perfect. And I'm really hoping that there's a land in the top 2 here. That's the opposite of land. A 6-mana spell and a 5-mana spell. So they are both instantly going to the bottom. Down you go. Man, I was so screwed there. Holy cow. Without the ability to scry 2 there, I was drawing a 6 and a 5 with no additional lands. That would have been nightmarish. I would have lost this game on the spot. And instead of drawing one of those spells, I get a 0, the ultimate one. It is so ridiculous. Okay, so few choices here. I could develop my mana here with the Worn Power Stone, but I really, really want to get blue in play before he's able to redeploy Sygg or cast something worse. And if I'm able to get the Jace the Mind Sculptor on play, I can just completely trump his 4-drop replay of his commander. So the Worn Power Stone, even though it gets 2 more mana into play, it's not really that useful right now. Fact or Fiction, if I'm able to hit even a single land off of this, is effectively half of the Worn Power Stone. So I'm going to just cast Fact or Fiction right now before he can counterspell off anything but like a Daze or Force of Will. And sure enough, 2 more spells in a row. I really, really had to draw out of land, but there are 2 islands. So whatever pile he gives me with these 2 islands, I'm going to be grabbing. I don't care about the spells at all. And I don't agree with this split, especially because he hasn't seen me play another land, and he did see me play the Reliquary Tower 2nd, which is almost always a tell that your opponent does not have a 2nd blue source, because, you know, a blue-red deck probably wants to get all of its blue sources out. So I think him giving me, literally, if he had put one of these islands up above, I still would have taken the pile of 2 with the Felwar Stone and the island. Or he could have gone maybe Felwar Stone and 2 islands. I think this was a poor split on his part. And I grabbed the 3 in a millisecond, given the fact that this does nothing. The Spell Pierce does nothing, and I can't even cast Cryptic Command. So I'm overjoyed to get that. Even though I do have the Crucible of Worlds, having one of the islands go to the graveyard wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But that really, really increased my chances in this game. I mean, I put 3 mana to play on my next turn. All right. True Name Nemesis. Man, if you're going to tap out and your opponent's going to punish you, this is probably the ultimate punish. It's so brutal. Not only do I have literally 1 out in my entire deck that can stop this guy once he's in play, which is just an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. So my answer is 1 out to 7 mana. That's it. Against a deck that's probably filled with disruption and counterspells. Not only that, but it completely trumps my Jace the Mind Sculptor, and it enables his crazy card drawing with his commander. This creature's so good in general, and particularly amazing in a Sygg deck. And now it's out, and I am on a very fast clock. Oh, and I have a Mana Crypt in play too, which means that I could be taking potentially 6 damage a turn, and this game could be over in just 5 turns if I get very unlucky. But first flip is good. All right, I draw an Opal. That's phenomenal, actually, because I don't currently have a source of red mana. Play an island. I'm thinking about my mana here, and I decide I can play the Worn Power Stone, and I can play Nin the Pain Artist. There's no reason to really play the Felwar Stone, as that's just additional blue, and I've already got 4 blue mana in play. This turns Metalcraft on. I can Stoic Rebuttal now and feel reasonably safe. I mean, this is such a great example of why Nin the Pain Artist is such an insane commander, and it's that you can just use the reliable card advantage the general provides to ignore a great deal of what your opponent is doing. Sure, most decks would just fall over dead to a True Name Nemesis because they're intending to play a long game, and Nin can just draw so many cards that it makes the Cyclonic Rift practically inevitable, as well as the mana to go with it. So I'm quite happy to just develop mana and play Nin again here and sit on the Stoic. And he plays Fatal Push. So that's another mistake in my opinion. This is something I've been seeing people constantly do this, actually, which is to play removal as soon as Nin is in play before she's online, without realizing that the commander just doesn't do that much for me unless I devote a huge amount of mana into an activation. And you can always respond with Fatal Push or Lightning Bolt or Smother or Red Elemental Blast or whatever creature removal you have in your hand in response to the Nin activation on herself. And that way, not only do you kill the commander, but I invest a huge amount of mana into it as well. And certainly there are situations where I've activated Nin for like 4 or 5 and then intended to counterspell removal. But most of the time I'm just going to tap out and use her, especially early on when she's very cheap to cast and doesn't cost a lot of mana to replay. So just playing a Fatal Push here is just sort of falls right into my hands. It just gives me more information. It reduces his hand size. And it means that the chances that he actually has removal that I want to respond to are lower. So quite actually happy to see him do that. Even though it means I'm not going to be able to replay Nin for a bit. And he plays a Factory, which makes me sad because it's more pressure to go with his True Name Nemesis. And he taps 3 mana. And he plays, and after he thinks we're on, as soon as I see 2 life go away, I know exactly what's coming. And thank God I have the ability to Stoic Rebuttal here, because the only thing worse than 1 True Name Nemesis is 2 of them. And that's being countered in Heartbeat. Alright, I take 3. So the question is, how much pressure is this Mana Crypt going to put on me? There's 3 more, so I'm at 24. And I draw Karn Liberated. Oh my goodness. So incredible to draw that right now, because this thing gets 4 counters a turn. It's not the kind of card that your opponent can ever ignore, and that means that he's going to have to actually start devoting attacks to Karn, both with his True Name and the Factory, which costs 2 mana, just to keep this thing from revving up to 1,000,000 counters and potentially restarting the game. So that is an insane out. When I said that Rift was my only out, Karn is like 3/4 of an out as well. So really, really nice to get that. I can play Felwar Stone and play Karn to play around a Daze, and I'm going to immediately eat a card from his hand. And I think he removes a Bojuka Bog. So there's a land as well in case I do restart the game. I'm just hoping to get a couple lands underneath Karn and then restart to deal with the True Name. Alright, so he taps mana. And this is definitely a good play on his part, I think. I guess he could send True Name at my face and then replay Sygg to draw a card if he's really desperate, but that would allow me to get Karn up to 14. And if I had some way to stop his attack, like a Cryptic Command to tap his guys, then I would be able to restart right away and just deal with the problem. But he's sending these both at Karn to cut the counters in half, and he says done. Almost certainly sitting on a counter spell. Crypt yields no damage, very lucky. And I draw one of the new additions to the deck in the 1v1 format, which is this Chrome Mox, which would have been probably Sensei's Divining Top, and that is not useful right now at all, because I'm not going to imprint Jace the Mind Sculptor on it. So I exile another card from his hand. Certainly no temptation with 5 counters on here to kill off the Mishra's Factory. I'd much rather just continue to winnow down his hand and keep pressuring with counters on Karn, and he exiles, I think, a Spell Pierce this time. Thoughtseize. Very interesting that he didn't actually play the Thoughtseize there, which means the 2 cards remaining in his hand are primo. Or he's got a 3-mana counterspell. It's one of the two. I kind of put him on a 3-mana counterspell when he didn't cast a Thoughtseize. So that means I'm going to play Nin first here with the assumption that he'll just counter it. And then that resolves. And so I figure, coast is clear for Jace. I'll do that too. And he starts to tap mana, and I'm thinking, what the hell is that? And he plays Snapcaster Mage, because if you've seen already, he really, really likes to make sure that Nin is dead before it's active. Again, this just would have been a perfect answer for me investing a ton of mana in my Nin the Pain Artist. So he just Fatal Pushes away Nin. That's cool. I do get to brainstorm at least before this thing's going to die. And I get Chrome Mox, Coalition Relic, Crucible of Worlds. It's 3 artifacts with a stupid Chrome Mox. That's useless. Snapcaster is really interesting, not only because I've got a number of really, really good cards in my graveyard, including the Cryptic Command that I mentioned. I guess I probably should have mentioned that it was in the graveyard when I talked about drawing it. But it's a blocker potentially on either the Factory or his Snapcaster Mage to keep pressure off of these guys, which could actually prove decisive. It could really be confusing if you were intending to, say, send the True Name at Karn and send these 2 guys to go Jace. I could block one and mess up his block, or mess up his attack, and he'd have to deal with 2 Planeswalkers over 1. Counterspell is really nice. Coalition Relic, not as important. I'm going to put the Chrome Mox and the Crucible of Worlds back. And I sort of, at my discretion, will think about whether or not I want to cast my Snapcaster Mage. So he attacks, and this is very interesting. He doesn't send in the Factory. This is going at Jace, and this thing is going at me. And when I saw him send an attack at me over, say, the Karn Liberated, I was positive that he had Ninja the Deep Hours in his hand, or at least some other thing with ninjutsu, because that's the only reason I could imagine that he would do that, as the ninjutsu ability, or the ninja's ability only works on players, not on any attack. And sure enough, he does have Ninja the Deep Hours, which is a pretty goddamn good thing to use on Snapcaster Mage when you have many, many instances in your graveyard. So he draws 2, he kills off Jace, draws a card. It's so gnarly. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a 4th mana source, because he could have replayed Sygg right there and drawn... Actually, no, I guess he couldn't have drawn. He only dealt 2 damage. But he does have Phyrexian Revoker. Oh, my God. Yeah, I don't know how many answers short of Bounce that his deck is playing against Karn Liberated. He may have Pithing Needle in there too, although I doubt it, because it's not a creature and it's not aggressive enough to suit what his deck is trying to do. But Revoker is a freaking hard counter against Karn right now. Not only is it tons of extra pressure, but it shuts down my Colas dude completely. Now he casts that Opt. I guess that's the first time he's cast Opt. And now he can replay the Opt with his Snapcaster Mage and he gets a land. Oh boy, falling into a deep hole here. At least I win the flip and I'm at 22, but this is a ton of damage now. So Karn shut off, and he's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage worth of pressure in play. And I don't really have anything because I just brainstormed and I know what the top of my deck is. It's looking really, really bleak right now. And I can't really replay. And I honestly, I was sort of like had 1 foot out of the door in this game at this point, and I actually should have counted my mana. I sort of just looked at this, and I kind of generally have an instinctive feel for whether or not I have enough mana to do everything that I want to do. And I just looked at this and I said, -2, this doesn't look like I have 8. Because I fully intend to go Snapcaster and either Cryptic Command or Fact or Fiction next turn, and then also Counterspell, which requires 8. And if you look right here, if I pay 3 for a Coalition Relic, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did have exactly 8, so not playing the Relic there was certainly an oversight. And I should have taken the 5 seconds necessary to do the counting. He activates Factory. So this is going to be a really interesting turn. So what does he do here? How seriously does he take the Karn Liberated threat, right? He can send a lot of damage at my face, plus the Crypt. This is potentially, well, you can see it's 9 plus an additional 3 would take more than half my life total away, and he can play Sygg post-combat to draw a card. Or he can take the safe route, assume that my blue-red deck has a way to deal with Phyrexian Revoker in a turn or two, and send them all at Karn Liberated, get him off the board, and then start working on my life total. And if I were in his shoes, that's exactly the play that I would have done. Although maybe I would have sent the Ninja the Deep Hours at my face just to draw a card, but I think I would have sent all 3 of these at Karn Liberated. There is some value, of course, in sending True Name at me as well, since I can't block with it, and the Ninja, and then these 2 go at Karn, because then he can draw a card with Sygg, and I think that actually may be what he does. We'll see here. So there's the first attack. That's at me to draw a card. Revoker and True Name are going at Karn Liberated to take 5 counters off, and then the Factory's headed at me. So he actually did pretty much the same thing, give or take 1 point of damage that I would have done. I think it's an excellent decision to split the damage, go after Karn, realized that I might be able to deal with the Revoker and still draw an extra card off of his Ninja and potentially activate Sygg as well. So I like this attack a lot. And I am going to respond before blockers, of course. Tossing out my Snapcaster with the counterspell in the stack, or with the counterspell in my hand, and of course I'm going to cast Fact or Fiction because I know that the top of my deck is a useless Chrome Mox, and we are in dire straits here. So I'm just going to do this. That's targeting Fact or Fiction. I'm still going to actually cast this during the attack step because there is a small range of things I could draw that would affect combat a lot, like a Fire Ice. Yeah, that's a mistake too. I have no idea why I tapped the Mox Opal over the Fellwar Stone. That's just plain stupid. Honestly, there's no excuse for that because I could absolutely use the red mana. I don't play Electrolyze, but getting Fire Ice here would have really changed the way that this attack step would have worked out, and I feel extremely foolish for that because I haven't blocked yet. And if I were to kill away the Phyrexian Revoker, I could use the Ninja. I'm sorry, I could use the Snapcaster to block this thing too, and yeah, it would have been a better result overall. So firing off the Fact or Fiction. Chrome Mox, we already saw that. Mana Leak, not useless, not bad. Thought Vessel, pretty useless. Wasteland, good for killing off the factory. And even better because I've got Crucible. But booyah, sitting right there, the Vidalcan Shackles, ready to own the blue-black player. Extremely, extremely timely. Very, very good card to get. And will help tremendously with relieving the pressure. And after splitting 1, 2, then 3, and then finally 4, I will happily pick up the 1 card and put the Shackles into my hand because it's very unlikely that he's going to be able to deal with that with so few cards in his hand. I can block his Revoker. Karn only loses 3 counters. He does get to draw a card, and I take another 4 damage. But I've dealt with a very, very serious problem, which was the Revoker shutting down Karn, and now he's going to have to contend with that. So post-combat, he thinks for a bit, and as I expected, he plays his Sygg. And I really, really gave a lot of thought to not countering this, even though, because it is the only counterspell in my hand, and he's still got 3 cards. There are a lot worse things that he could do with this much mana. But the more I thought about it, he's going to draw a card right away off because he dealt 4 to me this turn, and this Crypt in play means that anytime it hits me, he's also going to draw a card. It could very easily wind up drawing him 4 or even 6 cards in a couple of turns, and I decide that that's certainly worth the price of a counterspell. And I want the Shackles to be able to steal something like his Ninja, so I can deal with multiple threats. I don't want to just have Sygg hit here while he still continues to attack me with multiple things with 2 power and 2 toughness, so it's not going to work. I have to counterspell it regretfully. Come on, Crypt. No damage. Damn, alright, down to 15. Oh, that is quite a draw too. That mana drain is really, really timely. I get to eat another card out of his hand. I think this time he throws away Spell Pierce. Yeah, there goes Spell Pierce. Very nice to get that out of his hand, actually. I'm going to play my Shackles. And that's a solution to his Ninja, and now I've got an opportunity. I could have played Nin here, but I didn't have enough mana to play Nin and still mana drain, and I figured that the Nin's not going to really matter that much because I'm going to just devote myself to the Karn Liberated plan here, or at least I'm going to give him a choice. He's going to have to decide between dealing damage to me and trying to race the Karn counters with Crypt and his True Name Nemesis, or he's going to have to start devoting attacks to Karn Liberated, which, as we know, is a losing proposition. So with that in mind, I decide I'm not going to need to use Nin. I'm just going to try to play for a game reset. And we'll see. Here he announces his attack step. I can steal the Ninja, which shuts down any ability to attack with Factory. And here comes True Name, and look at that. At my life total, which I completely agree with. I think that's exactly the right thing to do. I think that you can't... It's a losing proposition, even with my Crypt playing me at 15, to assume that he's going to be able to keep the Karn Liberated in check by attacking it for 3. I just have 2 dominant of the board position. And with that in mind, I think he needs to just go for the pressure play and hope that I get unlucky with Crypt and die before the Karn is able to go ultimate. So he discards that. He's tapping some mana. He plays Skull Clamp. An interesting card, but certainly makes sense in his deck. And then he plays Snapcaster Mage, which would mean that he would be able to play Snapcaster. He's got no cards in hand, clamp it, and opt. So he'd get 3 more cards, and that is worthy of a mana drain, because that's basically like countering an Ancestral Recall. I've certainly mana drained my fair share of Ancestral Recalls in my career. Alright, I'm going to tap a Coalition Relic to put a counter on it. And I love this, too, that I've got the Wasteland in the graveyard and the Crucible of Worlds, because he's definitely counting on using the Factory to block the Ninja, but he's not going to be able to do that. Oh, Crypt. Win the flip. Alright, not bad. I draw Rewind. Man, the deck is just delivering counterspell after counterspell. It's so lucky. Alright, Mana Drain gives me 3. It's just... And yeah, of course, I used the... And I absolutely made a mistake here. before he even attacked, I used Karn Liberated on him when he had no cards in his hand. I think that was a stupid play, because I know I'm going to be able to draw at least one card due to the Ninja, and if that card is a permanent, like say a Mana Source, and it could be an amazing one like a Gilded Lotus or something, I'm going on the Karn Liberated play, the ultimate plan. Well, I get to draw a card, and if that card is, say, well, it's not going to be Crucible of Worlds, but if it's something incredible like a Gilded Lotus, then I could exile it from my own hand, because Karn is target player. And then when I restart the game, I start the game with a Gilded Lotus in play, and that would crush him instantly. Plus, even any land, if I get my island or whatever, plus his Bojuka Bog, I reset the game and I start with 2 mana in play. It's ridiculous. I have no chance of losing that game. But I screwed up, and I exiled a card from his hand before I attack with the Ninja. But I get to strip that away and attack. And I'm thinking, please give me like a counterspell so I don't feel like a dumbass. Or at least something useless. And it's Command Tower. Like, basically the best land that I could probably exile with Karn. I felt so stupid here when I did that. Frustrating. But at least I get to play Nin Pain Artist here. Tapping my mana incorrectly. Down comes Nin. I've got Rewind for his turn, and I'm feeling good here. Like, what the hell does he do? Really, what the hell does he do? So it goes back to token counter's hand. And he attacks. This is going at me again. Takes me down to 9. You see him tapping some mana here. He untaps. And he clamps away his guy. And this was a very interesting play. A really, really brave and bold play. And I really want to commend him for it. I think that with me at 9... and him having no answer to Karn Liberated, I think that it's maybe a turn premature. In that I'm not necessarily going to even ultimate Karn at this point. I guess I do get it up to 18 counters. But I feel like by clamping it away, it kind of changes the dynamic of the game. Especially because he's going all in on the plan. If he doesn't manage to draw a bounce spell for Karn, or if I have a counterspell for it, then he's removed his ability to actually win this game. If I'm able, because at that point I don't even need to ultimate. I can just use Karn Liberated to kill off my Mana Crypt. I'm no longer under any pressure, and I win trivially from there. So I think that it's a very bold play, but I think if he had really thought it through, it would have made sense to not do that until I was within danger of dying to the Mana Crypt. And here's where we reach the bug stage of the game. Obviously he did not cast Slip Through Space here. What he did, though, was he cast target creature can't be blocked this turn. Notice it's targeting Karn. What's wrong with that that play? Given the fact that Karn is a planeswalker, what he did was he cast Cyclonic Rift, and I rewound the Rift, and he responded by by remanding his own Rift, and then replaying it a second time to bounce Karn Liberated back to my hand. It went back to my turn. I took 3 from the Mana Crypt, hit him with the Ninja, and I just feel like I wasn't at 9. I feel like this replay's been bugged the whole time. And actually, I'm going to see if there's a dialogue box here. So I rewind there. You can see him tapping more mana. That's where he casts Rewind. And that's why you see that Rewind is on the stack all of a sudden, which of course makes no sense if it was either resolving or countered. But it's because it's resolving, targeting a Cryptic Command, or a Cyclonic Rift that he returned to his hand. Alright, let's see if I can get past this at all. Untap 4 lands. Well, that did not happen either, of course, because it was countered. So it's trying to execute bullshit functions. I don't think we're going to be able to get past this turn, but we'll see. Okay, there's the dialog box. You can see right here. So right here I said he 50-50, and he says best I could do. I have 1 burn spell, but didn't get there. I assume that's Sonic Blast. But my reference there is that I'm actually pretty sure I'm not at 9. I think that the replay was bugging with the coin flips. I was definitely at 3 life at this stage. So after he did the Cyclonic Rift on Karn Liberated, he rifted it back to my hand, and I had to coin flip with my life total at 3. And I won the coin flip by flipping heads, replayed Karn Liberated, immediately used it to exile a Mana Crypt to stay at 3 life, and attack with the Ninja, the Deep Hours, and drew a Pact of Negation. And I also had active Nin and played... Oh, that's right. I drew the Pact of Negation, and I also drew a Future Sight off of the Ninja, the Deep Hours. I played Future Sight, started churning with that. I abraded away his Skull Clamp, which got rid of that as a threat. He desperately... Oh, and I drew Fabricate right afterward. I used Fabricate to go fetch Phyrexian Metamorph, which I cast to make a second copy of Vedalken Shackles. And I had Nin the Pain Artist going, and then revealed both Remand and Memory Lapse through the Future Sight, and I also walked into Merchant Scroll with it, cast Merchant Scroll to get Forbid with about 4 or 5 cards in my hand. And finally, the nail in the coffin is I think I cast Whir of Invention to go get Sensei's Divining Top, which combined with Future Sight allowed me to draw 7 or 8 cards a turn or whatever indiscriminately, and he was buried. He had no cards in hand, and I still had active Karn. So that was the end of the game. You will not get to see that finale, unfortunately, because the replay did not cooperate. Okay, great. Somehow it untapped my 4-land, even though that never actually happened, and he's got mana in his pool. These bug games are hilarious. What's going to happen? Crypt. So I think I win the coin flip here. Oh, it's not going to progress. You can see the bugs over here on the side. The bug illegal target. This is how it looks. But the timer will just drain off for a few more minutes as the game unfolded. And that is it. Let me jump forward a bit, and I'll probably just end it. There we go. Yeah, game is ended. Token counter has conceded the game. So that was the end, guys. An amazing game. I thought it was worth recording even with the bug stuff because of how the early part of the game went and all the cool interaction with creatures attacking planeswalkers and blocking stuff and deciding what to counter, and watching this deck perform as it usually does with the cool multiple castings of Fact or Fiction. His very, very cool and bold plays by skull clamping his own guy. But in the context of me being at 9 life, that makes no sense. I'm sorry I made commentary about that, but I was actually at 3 when he did that. And so in his estimation, it didn't matter whether or not the True Name Nemesis was in play, because I was going to just reset with Karn Liberated if I did in fact get to 0. I mean, if I did in fact survive the turn and didn't die to Mana Crypt. And in the Mana Crypt, the life wouldn't matter. So I think it was actually a really, really cool play. I think he played, for the most part, minus the Fatal Push uses on a non-active Nin, I feel like he played this game really, really well. And kudos to him. I think his deck is really neat. And I hope you guys enjoyed this game. I've got more to come, a couple more to record, and we'll go from there. See you later.